We were on the verge of a total meltdown in our economy, and most people don't even realize that.
That's absolutely right. By Wednesday, it looked like the entire financial system was going to implode. That's why, even if this is a very, very expensive bailout plan, they had to do something new and different because this ad hoc step-by-step approach was leading us to disaster. So we avoided the abyss just by an epsilon.
Okay, so how do you answer Peter's problem? Because Peter is saying, we're going to trash the rest of the country. We're going to trash anything that's good by throwing this debt on top of our country and on our currency. How do you answer that?
There is a significant risk, and the problem is also that we have privatized the profits and the gains, and now we are socializing the cost of this massive amount of greed and risk-taking. That's a problem, but you have to ask yourself, if you have a collapse of Wall Street, you're going to destroy also Main Street. And if you want to save Main Street and not to have a severe, protracted recession like Japan for a decade, we have to do something with the borrowers and the lenders and the economy and the financial system. Otherwise, it's going to be a disaster.
The government's not going to save us. They did this to us. They're the ones that created the greed by eliminating all the risks of mortgage lending in the first place. You know, they say we have to do this. They said we have to go into Iraq because they had weapons of mass destruction. They were wrong. This plan is a weapon of mass destruction to destroy our economy and to destroy our currency.
Right.
As bad as this collapse would be, this is going to make it worse. Doing something different would be shrinking government.
Brett, I read a story about Ben Bernanke, and he's a scholar on the Great Depression, and he says the one thing I don't want to do is what they did right before the Great Depression, which was tighten everything else up. But I thought to myself, well, that doesn't mean the opposite is right. You know, that doesn't make that less wrong. What should they be doing, Brett?
Well, you know, when you compared this to 1929, it's not just what happened in the stock market. There's no coincidence. We also just passed another milestone, just like 1929, in that our household debt surpassed our GDP. Our debt levels as a percentage of GDP are at about or higher than they were in 1929. And that's really where all of this has started. Now, I think this bailout plan is absolutely necessary. I think that the alternative is a disaster. But I hope that this is going to be a wake-up call for all of America. People have got to prepare. People watching this at home have got to realize that they have got to adapt to this situation. What's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be quite different and much tougher than in the last 5 to 10 years. And you need to control the things that you can control. People have got to cut their spending. They've got to start rebuilding their balance sheets, getting their debt levels down.
But how are they going to do that? But the government is just borrowing and spending more money. They're not letting the market fix the problem. And how are we going to get out of this mess with more government, with more inflation?
Listen. You know, the reality, we can talk about this, but when you have a run on the bank, the government has to step in. The government, in 1929...
By destroying our money?
No,
what good is it if you get to the bank to get your money and it's not worth anything?
Listen, you're complaining accurately about the problems that got us here. The problem is this. You know, everyone can talk about macroeconomic stuff. I really want to talk about what ordinary Americans can do to prepare themselves and sort of try and crash-proof themselves in this situation. But let's just look at the situation. In 1929, the private sector tried to stop the run on the stock market and couldn't, as it had succeeded in doing in 1907, not to go too much into history. But the reality is, when you have a run on the bank, when people think not, oh, my stocks are going to fall in value, but my stocks won't be there tomorrow because my brokerage is going to go bankrupt, someone has to do a Jimmy Stewart, stand up on the table and say, I can hand out dollars.
Hang on, Peter, hang on.
Hopefully, they won't have to hand out all those dollars. But without someone saying, "I'm willing to do so," the whole thing ends.
Nouriel, let me go to you, because my idea of this bailout is not that it's going to work. I mean, I don't think that this bailout is going to stop everything. I think there's massive collapse of other institutions. We were on the verge of losing gigantic corporations last week as well. There's more coming around the corner. I think it is to control the crash. It is going to crash if you do it or if you don't do it. One way, it's guaranteed to crash and be awful and really ugly and bloody. The other way, it's going to crash, but we might have a little less blood. Do you agree with that or not?
Yes, I do agree with you. At this point, the recession train has left the station. Yeah. We are in a recession. Consumption has been falling for 4 months in a row. At this point, the banking crisis and the financial crisis train has left the station. There is going to be a banking financial crisis. We're going to have a hard landing and a crash. Yeah. As you suggested, the difference between a controlled crash or a total collapse. And this bailout plan, if implemented properly, is going to lead us to a controlled crash.
Okay, guys, that is the real story tonight. Back in a minute.